There is a mourning dove who keeps returning to your yard, and you have started to notice her at the same hour, almost every day. You did not invite her, not exactly. You filled a feeder, you let the grass grow a little long, and somehow she decided this place was hers too. A mourning dove choosing your yard again and again is not a coincidence, and it is not random luck either. It is a decision she keeps making. Welcome back to Yard Science, the channel where we look closely at the small wild lives that quietly share our yards with us every day. Doves are not bold birds. They are soft-bodied, slow-moving, and almost defenseless against anything that wants to hurt them. Every choice they make is cautious. So when one keeps coming back to the same yard, researchers say something specific is happening, and most people get the reason completely wrong. We are going to walk through what her visits actually mean, one piece at a time, and the picture that forms by the end may surprise you. Stay with me because the fifth reason is one almost nobody knows, and the last one is the one that tends to stay with people the longest. 1. She has marked your yard as a safe place. For a mourning dove, safety is never a feeling. It is a calculation, repeated constantly, tested over and over. Cornell Lab of Ornithology has documented that mourning doves build strong site familiarity, returning again and again to specific perches and feeding spots they have already tested before. Every visit to your yard was once a test. Did anything chase her? Did a shadow move wrong? Did a sound mean danger? None of it ever did. And across enough mornings without incident, your yard slowly stopped being a risk in her mind and became something closer to home ground for her. That kind of trust is never handed out freely. A bird with almost no natural defenses cannot afford to be careless about where she chooses to land. 2. She has found a reliable source of food in your yard, and reliability matters more to a dove than abundance ever could. Mourning doves feed almost entirely on seeds, and unlike many backyard birds, they swallow large amounts at once, storing the extra in a part of the throat called the crop. Researchers studying foraging behavior have found that doves strongly favor open ground near cover, where they can see danger coming and still retreat within seconds if needed. If your yard has bare soil near a feeder, or seed that has scattered loosely onto the grass, she has already mapped exactly where it tends to land. She is not guessing when she returns. She remembers, almost precisely, which corner of your yard reliably gives her what she needs to survive the day ahead. 3. She is telling you, in her own quiet way, that she no longer sees you as a threat at all. This is the part most people miss completely, because they assume the bird is simply present, not that the bird is actively making a judgment about them. Researchers who study how prey species respond to humans have shown that birds learn to distinguish between people who move predictably and people who do not. If she no longer flies the moment your door opens, if she lets you move across the yard while she stays low in the grass nearby, that is not laziness on her part. That is evaluation, repeated many times and quietly passed. She has watched how you walk, how fast you move, whether you have ever once startled her on purpose. And every single time, you came back as the same calm shape in the yard. So somewhere along the way, she stopped treating you as something worth escaping from. 4. She may be staying close to a nest, and this is the reason almost nobody connects to her repeated visits. Mourning doves build famously simple nests, often just a loose platform of twigs, sometimes so thin you can see daylight straight through the bottom of it. What the species lacks in nest engineering, it makes up for in persistence. The same pair will often raise multiple broods within a single season, one after another. Researchers tracking nesting mourning doves have found that pairs frequently reuse the same tree, even the same fork in the same branch, year after year without fail. If she keeps appearing at the same hours, slipping quietly toward the same corner of your yard, she may not simply be visiting at all. She may be parenting. Somewhere close by, in a nest thinner than it has any right to be, there may be 2 pale eggs, or 2 restless young, waiting patiently for her return. What comes next is where this behavior stops being only practical, and starts becoming something closer to an actual bond. So stay with me here for a moment. 5. She remembers you specifically, not just your yard, and not just the general shape of a human being passing through. Mourning doves have been shown in field studies to recognize individual humans who feed them consistently, clearly distinguishing them from strangers who enter the same space. She knows the rhythm of your footsteps before you even round the corner. She knows the sound of the door you use most often. She has, in a real sense, built a small file on you. And every visit she makes is, in part, a visit to a person she has already decided is familiar, not only a place she has decided is familiar to her. 6. There is one detail about mourning doves that almost nobody mentions, and it quietly changes how every single visit should be read. Mourning doves are among the most strongly paired songbirds in all of North America. Once bonded, a pair will often stay together for an entire breeding season, and sometimes for life. If you have ever noticed two doves moving through your yard together, taking turns at the feeder, sitting close on the very same wire, that was never coincidence. That was partnership, the kind built over months of shared nesting duties, shared feeding routes, and a shared decision about which yard was truly worth defending together. When one dove keeps visiting your yard, there is very often a second one nearby, watching the same space, trusting the very same ground. 7. Her visits are tied closely to the sound she makes, and that sound is doing far more work than most people ever realize. The low, mournful call that gives the species its name is not sadness at all. It is a male's advertisement call, used to hold territory and to call in a mate from nearby. Researchers studying dove vocalizations have found that the same individual will return to call from the same perch repeatedly, sometimes for several years in a row. If you have heard that soft, rolling call drifting from the same tree every spring, it is very likely the same bird, returning faithfully to the same stage. 8. She is tracking the seasons through your yard, in a way that has very little to do with calendars at all. Mourning doves are among the earliest nesters in spring and among the very latest in autumn, often raising broods long after most other species have already finished for the year. Studies of their breeding range have shown that a single pair can raise up to 6 broods in one season, if food and safety both remain steady. If she has been in your yard since the cold edge of spring and is somehow still there as summer fades into autumn, she has been quietly working the entire time. 9. The stillness of your yard is part of why she chose it in the first place, and this is something humans rarely think to offer on purpose. Doves are ground feeders with very little natural defense beyond flight, so calm, predictable spaces matter to them more than almost any other backyard bird you might host. Researchers studying disturbance in suburban bird populations have found that ground-feeding species like doves actively avoid yards with frequent loud noise or sudden, unpredictable movement. If your yard has stayed quiet, unhurried, the kind of place where nothing ever startles without warning, that quality alone may be most of what drew her back here in the first place. If any of this has felt familiar so far, take a second to like this video. It genuinely helps more people who care about the birds in their own yard find this channel. 10. Her name carries something that science has never fully explained away, and it is worth sitting with for a moment. The mourning dove was named for that low, soft call, often mistaken at first for sorrow rather than survival. Ornithologists are careful to say the call is not grief. It is communication, territory, courtship, all wrapped into one sound. And yet, for generations, people sitting quietly with loss have described hearing that exact call drift through an open window, at the precise moment they needed something gentle nearby. Science has not confirmed any message in that. But science has also never fully explained why so many people, independently, describe the very same feeling at the very same kind of moment. What comes last is the reason that tends to stay with people longest, so give me just one more minute before we close together. 11. She has folded your yard into the small fixed map of her entire life, and that is not a small thing for a bird like her. A mourning dove's world is never large. It is a handful of safe perches, a few feeding spots, 1 or 2 trusted nesting trees, all connected by careful, low flights between them. When she keeps returning to your yard, she is telling you, in the only language she has, that your yard has become one of the few fixed points her whole life is quietly built around. You did not earn that by trying to. You earned it simply by being steady, by letting her be, by continuing to exist in the same calm way day after day. She is not a pet. She owes you nothing at all. She could have chosen any yard within her low, careful flight range, and she keeps choosing yours instead. Think for a moment about what that actually means. A bird with almost no defenses, one that loses eggs to crows, loses young to summer heat, loses mates to hawks without warning. An animal whose entire life is built around caution has decided, against every instinct telling her to stay wary, that your yard is worth the risk of returning to. That is not nothing. In the quiet language of a bird with almost nothing protecting her, that is something very close to trust, freely given without obligation. The world is full of small, soft-bodied lives we were never taught to notice, and the one returning to your yard is entirely real, every single day that passes. She has been there in the early light while you made coffee, and in the fading light while you carried the trash out to the curb. She has been choosing your yard quietly, without asking for anything in return, long before you ever stopped to wonder why she kept coming back at all. She will likely be there again tomorrow, low in the grass or steady on the wire, in the same unhurried way she always has been since she first arrived. She asks for nothing more than what you have already been giving her, a yard that does not frighten her, and a person who has slowly learned how to be still. And now when you hear that low call drifting from the same tree, or see her settle into the same quiet corner of the lawn, you will finally know what it has meant all along. If this sat with you the way it sat with me while writing it, leave a comment about the dove that visits your own yard, and tell me what you have noticed about her. Subscribe so the next quiet story about the birds outside your window finds you right when it's ready. Take care of yourself this week, and look out toward that same quiet corner tomorrow morning. She may already be there, waiting in her own steady, patient way.